Hello everyone, this is Edward back yet again for number 9 in my series of philosophical questions. Today I am tackling the question of where does your self-worth come from? Where does your self-worth come from? Somehow difficult to say that, self-worth. So, where to start with this? Well, probably for this one we need a dictionary definition just to get us on the right path. So I went with the Merriam-Webster definition for this one, and I found self-worth is a feeling that you are a good person who deserves to be treated with respect. Sounds nice, I guess, if perhaps somewhat vague. This really, I think, is an idea that has come about in more recent times, right? If we were to look maybe even 50 years ago, and certainly 100 years ago, there weren't many people talking about self-worth, really, at least not in any sort of wide sense, right? Maybe a few psychologists sort of discussing it, but it's not really a mainstream idea. Most people are simply just trying to get through life. So this was probably not high up on their lists of worries. Am I achieving, or do I have good self-worth or high self-worth? However we want to sort of measure that. Certainly hard to put a number on it, I would say, right? I guess you either have high or low self-worth. And actually, I just noticed my collar is doing something interesting. I think I'll do unbuttoned on both sides. How about that? Possibly nice. Got a bit of pink on the inside. Perhaps I'm defining myself as a pink person today. Maybe a little bit pink in the skin, at least. Okay, so we got that definition. It sounds a bit sort of new agey, perhaps. A little bit like the self-help movement. I think we're certainly going to see a lot of words like self-understanding, self-love, self-acceptance. A lot of these ideas, I think, are associated with this larger idea of self-worth, right? In part, I think this is probably related to something that has been around for quite a while, which is sort of the power of positive thinking, right? Whatever I think I am, I can become, right? So almost like that very weird book, The Secret, which I think thankfully is sort of disappearing from the world stage now, but certainly used to be there, very popular, right? Okay, actually today I've got 3 drinks. I've got tea, coffee, and a tiny bit of whiskey. Because who doesn't need some whiskey? Okay. Well, going back to that sort of definitional problem. Okay, so how do we determine that feeling of a good person? Well, we could certainly make it a comparison, right? Compare myself to other people. What are they achieving? What am I achieving? And then I can measure it. If I'm beating him, well, then I can feel good about myself, and that would increase my self-worth. That certainly seems logical, right? I mean, how else can you sort of measure your value, right? I mean, how can you even have a value if it's not in comparison to something else, right? This is really getting to the core question or problem with the self-worth movement or idea, which is this tension between the individual and society, right? Am I letting myself be defined by society and what society deems as value or valueless, right? Or am I somehow generating my own value individually somehow, right? So we'll discuss both of these types of thoughts. But maybe already you can see that there is perhaps somewhat of a logical inconsistency with defining yourself as having value if you're not making a comparison, right? Value in and of itself is a comparison, right? If there's nothing else, right, then you can't really talk about value. I mean, there's sort of almost an implied exchange happening there, right? Okay, well, if we sort of go with just that basic idea of, okay, it's about achievement, it's about competition, well, then we could just simply say, well, you can take a look at your own personal abilities and skills, look at how much effort you put into it, right? Like, did I try really hard to win the game? And and as part of that, I guess your performance, right? Did you win the game? So did you have the skill to win the game? Did you put in the effort to win the game? And did you win the game? I think all of those as the sort of basis of the achievement comparison makes sense, right? But there's certainly loads of other things that we can use to measure our self-worth. So I'll go through sort of a quick list of these, and maybe I'll discuss some of them as we go along. So goal achievement, right? Are you achieving goals that you set for yourself? Are these goals perhaps more ambitious than other people's goals, right? So like if I set a goal for just like, oh, 1 sip of coffee today, well, I achieved it just then, but that wasn't particularly ambitious, so probably didn't add much to my self-worth, unless I'm somehow in a coffee drinking competition with other people. So is this a good method? Well, it is hitting the basic ideas, right? There is a competitional nature to it. We are making that comparison. It is about achievement, performance, effort. Okay, so not bad. Your job. Should you define your self-worth from your job? So I think a lot of people already do this anyway, right? Whether or not it's consciously or not. And I think as a society, we do tend to rank different jobs. For example, I don't know, police officer or doctor. This is seen as a respectable job, a respectable position to have. You know, you're helping society. There is something about sort of almost a moral dimension to it, like, oh, you are a good person because you have this job. Whereas if you are a janitor, right, and so you clean toilets all day, right? We certainly need our toilets cleaned, right? I sure do hate a dirty bathroom like anyone else, but that job appears to be contributing less to society than the policeman, the doctor, and those types of jobs. So if that's true, well then I think it makes some sense to get your self-worth from your job, right? Of course, if you lose your job, then does that automatically mean you lose your self-worth, right? So perhaps what we can see here is that maybe the qualities that got you that job, you know, the personal qualities that got you that job or made you good at that job, those things will remain whether you're continuing to work in that job. So you may get some of your self-worth from the job, but also the other parts of your personality may also be important there, right? You know, not everyone could be a doctor, not everyone could be a police officer. So there must be some other things happening, perhaps. We'll get back to that. Okay, well, popular one for these days, how many people are following you on social media? I think a lot of people measure themselves on this. You know, I every so often, I guess, check the number of likes and things that I'm getting, you know, for these videos, for other things. You know, I post something on Twitter and, oh, someone liked it, and I get a little flutter of the heart. It feels good. Am I defining my self-worth from that? Not right now. But, you know, if I had millions and millions of followers, maybe, right? I mean, that's surely telling you something. And then, you know, the message you're spreading, or the ideas, or your performance, something is attractive to those other people, and that would boost your self-esteem at the very least, right? And that would contribute to your self-worth. Of course, people immediately want to say, oh, well, you can't let yourself be defined by other people. And so here we hit up against that, is it society or the individual type of thing? I think you can probably already feel that I'm leaning towards society in this case, because this is how society works, right? We point out people who have good ideas or who are attractive in certain ways, and we say that is a good person. We want more of that, right? I mean, certainly the people can be stupid and choose bad people, right? We've certainly elected, you know, to very powerful positions, very stupid and sort of idiotic people. So the people can be wrong, but, you know, perhaps in general, if you have been put in that position, right, in sort of an open and fair way, that is something that you can use as a guide to what your self-worth should be. Okay, So social media following could be a sign, although perhaps not the best sign. Okay, you could define yourself by your age, right? When you're a teenager, you're young, you're cool, you're brave, you're fearless. Then you get older, and then you say, I'm 50, so now I need to be responsible and professional and live that boring life. So age surely plays into it, right? But this could be a mental age, I suppose, as well, right? I know many people, like my mother, in fact, she's old, if you look at just the number. But I think for her mental age is more important, right? She does not see herself as, 70 something. She sees herself as 40 or 50, depending on it. So certainly age is a way to define yourself, but is it something that plays into your self-worth? I suppose the issue here would be, as you get older, you may run up against that sort of ageism that exists in society where people say, well, okay, you're too old for this position, right? You see that maybe in a technology company or something, right? Or a social media company, like we were just kind of talking about. Say, well, you're 50. What do you know about social media? You can't learn this stuff. Get out. So there is an issue there, I guess, but that is societal, right? I think it's kind of rare that people say, I'm old, so I can't do anything, though I'm sure there must be some. So this one, it's not great either way. And probably not the biggest factor. Even if you're using it, I can't see it as really being the biggest factor in your life for your self-worth. Okay, well, speaking of being old, I suspect the bigger issue for you could be your health, right? Are you healthy? Are you unhealthy? And for the rest of us as well, right? Am I healthy? Am I muscular? Am I good at sports? Do I look good in a bathing suit? That is definitely something that people are using for self-worth, I think, right? And this one, I think, well, maybe all of these I could say this about. In fact, like within reason, there's some acceptability for this, right? Being healthy, or at least trying to be healthy, right? Because certainly you may have some sort of chronic disease that you simply cannot do anything about, right? But that doesn't mean that you should not be trying to be as healthy as possible, right? In whatever you can do. So, and certainly for a healthy person, well, that's sort of circular logic there. Certainly for a normal person who does not have chronic diseases, trying to be healthy to a certain extent is important, right? So defining yourself as a healthy person and feeling good because you are healthy doesn't seem that bad, right? But taking it to an extreme where this is the most important thing, right? My outside appearance is the most important thing. That's a little bit bad, right? And it's sort of dangerous, right? Because it will not last, right? Doesn't matter how beautiful you are now or how muscular you are now, you're going to get old, right? And unfortunately, you're not going to look the same in the future, right? I've got some white hair here. I don't know if you guys can see, but, actually, I think it makes me look a little bit distinguished. So I'm going to say I like it. But, right, time advances on all of us, and there's nothing we can do about it. So holding on to your physical appearance too much is probably not great. The related part to this, like I quickly said, was athletic ability. Are you good at sports? That feeling of winning, right? Going back to the larger idea of competition and achievement, winning at sports feels great, right? If you are against getting some self-worth from, winning a basketball game, winning a soccer game, you're not a very fun person to be around, right? These are good. These are good for all of us, right? You're interacting with your friends or other people. And yeah, competition, right? And you want to win. You probably want that to be instilled in everyone, that desire to win. But also, I suppose, within that is the ability to overcome failure, right? That you're not destroyed by failing. You're looking to improve. So there's a few issues there that I want to come back to later, so we'll do that. Okay, what else? Well, if you're at school, you can define yourself by your grades. I certainly had a lot of friends who did that when I was at college and high school. They say, I'm a straight A student, right? I'm a studier. That's what I do. Oh, I can't go out. I'm a straight A student. I don't do that. these people often seemed sort of invariably to be boring people. Not that people who got good grades were boring, the people who defined themselves as having good grades, they were the boring ones. Nothing wrong with studying hard, but making this the end-all and be-all of your life is not great. And it seems probably sad later on in life, although I certainly met people who will have told me, they're in their 40s or 50s, I was a straight A student, so I know what's what now. So, wow, you were in school like 30 years ago, and this is still something that you're trying to throw in my face as a way in the argument? Like, I had straight A's, what do you know? Okay, good for you, but that's probably saying something about what you've achieved in the 30 years since you graduated, right? You couldn't tell me anything else about yourself. Okay, so that was not great. And in fact, in part, right, because school by itself is not the best measure, right? It's just a possible measure of one very specific thing, which is how well did you follow the rules of the school you were at, and how much did you play their game? Not how much did you actually learn, right? Or how much did you develop your thinking skills, your critical thinking skills? They may not have been measured at all. So a lot of things missing from that one. Okay, what else? Well, your family relationships. Do you have a good relationship with your mom, your dad, your parents, I just said that, your grandparents, sister, brother, whatever you got, cousins, second cousins, twice removed. Okay, do you have good relationships? Again, this is one of those things, like, people say, well, you shouldn't let yourself be defined by other people. But, your mother, your father, these are incredibly important people in your life. And if they don't have some effect on you, that's bad, right? This is one of those ones as well that people tend to allow for the fact that if you have a very good relationship with your mother, that's something to sort of be proud about. Even the people who say, don't let yourself be defined by other people. So, I have a great relationship with my mother. We're very close. So clearly that is going towards their self-worth, even though they just said, no, I don't let myself be judged by other people. In fact, it seems like when people say that, I don't let myself be judged, it's almost always because they're saying, I don't listen to the bad stuff, the criticism, right? If they're telling me good stuff, oh yes, I listen to that. Like, it's very rare that you meet someone honest enough to say that, right? And certainly it is true, right? You shouldn't let yourself get weighed down by the criticism of other people, but sometimes the criticism has a purpose and it's meant to help you. So ignoring it and not letting it define you is a bit odd because, in fact, right, I could say my self-worth comes from the belief that I am a person who accepts criticism well, right, and uses it to develop myself. That doesn't seem to fit into the whole idea of don't let yourself be judged by other people. So yes, I want to be judged by other people because that's how I improve myself. And I think that's something good about me. Okay, well, so I just showed that whole thing is illogical, right? Okay. All right, building on the relationship thing, right? You could talk about your sexual relationship, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, your menage a trois, or however many multiple wives and husbands you possibly have. Again, it's the same thing as the parents, right? If you have a good marriage, people always say, "Ooh, well, that is very, very good," and you feel good about it, right? I've achieved something and you haven't. So again, there is that competition and everything else. And of course, the bad relationship is the same thing as the bad relationship with your mom. Although I guess the thing that people will get caught up here is it's certainly true that you see people who have very low self-worth or low self-esteem being in bad relationships. But I think it was the low self-worth to begin with that put them into the bad relationship, right? It wasn't the reverse of that. So I'm not sure there's anything that can be sort of learned about that. But certainly, you should, I guess, define yourself as wanting to be in good and healthy relationships, right? And that is something that contributes to your self-worth, right? I'm someone who deserves that, and I'm someone who goes out and finds that. Yeah. Money, of course, money. If you're an American, or in the West in general perhaps, but certainly if you're an American, this is a big one. I can show you how big my bank account is. right? Or how heavy my paycheck is. And I can buy all the stuff you can't buy, right? Conspicuous consumption. Although, of course, in America, that's often debt-fueled. But if I really am rich, right? Not just fake rich, not just debt rich, but rich. Maybe, could I use this for my self-worth? Well, I think most people would probably say not really, right? Unless, and this is the key differentiation probably, right? The money could be used as a measure of your achievement, right? If you simply inherited the money from your parents or whatever, or you won it in the lottery, there's no reason to feel particularly good about yourself because you have this money. You did nothing for it. And it's just a stroke of luck, okay? Maybe this is why, in fact, you often see lottery winners in particular, their lives turn out terrible often, right? And they often end up broke with no friends because they felt maybe no connection to this and they felt like they hadn't earned it. So maybe they had some sort of like imposter syndrome happening there, right? I shouldn't have this money. It's wrong. They feel that maybe subconsciously, and that's how they turn out so badly. But if you built an amazing company, right? Like Jeff Bezos, Amazon, you can say whatever you want about how he treats his workers and things, but Amazon is a pretty cool company. So that money he's earned is, in a way, a real measure of what he's achieved. Okay? Of course, the logic breaks down a little bit here, right? There are certain jobs you could do that don't pay very much, like the police officer I mentioned before, that are of societal value, but we cannot measure simply by the money that's being paid for it. Okay? So this doesn't work for everything, but it could be a measure, right? So it's a sign. But if you're only looking at the money, you're looking at the wrong thing, right? The money is a signal of the actual achievement itself, okay? So really the self-worth should be coming from the creation of the company, right? Or whatever else you built. So that's the focus there. So I guess overall money is not the best thing for self-worth, but looking at the achievements is. Okay. Anything else? It's probably okay. So we've got a good list of things there. The question now is, again, well, how do we decide which ones are the ones we want to focus on? Should we do a mix or none of them at all, right? Because remember, there is an option, the individual option, which is basically saying, I am of value by myself, right? And does not matter what anyone else thinks. We are all of equal value. Yeah? So that's good. That's good, right? This is sort of, the ideas of democracy and liberalism. The individual is important. Okay, so we all have some worth, right? I think is what we can say from that. But is it possible to grow your self-worth from that basic level? That's the question, right? And if it's true, how can you do it, right? Maybe the danger here from the individual point of view is if I start trying to raise it from that basic level that we all agreed, okay, everyone has some worth, okay, or equal foundational worth, then I start saying, well, my self-worth is higher and higher because of all these beliefs that I hold about myself. It seems, at least to me, to be a little bit confusing about where is self-delusion and where is the sort of true statement of who I am, right? Like I found this quotation from a positive psychology website, which is really where a lot of this self-worth stuff comes from, this idea of positive psychology. So I'm just going to read it to you and then let you know what I think. Okay, so here's the quote. It says, to have a high level of self-worth means never allowing yourself to be defined by outside forces, including people's opinions. It means never allowing outcomes to shake your confidence, faith, or resolve. Okay, this is a very strong statement, right? And it seems to be pretty representative of this individualist idea of self-worth, right? Because this is entirely inner looking, right? You cannot use other people's opinions or outside forces of any sort, and even the outcomes of your actions you can't use. I mean, this is very odd, right? I mean, you could use it for that basic level, right? I can't go around telling people, you're of less worth than a dog, right? I'm saying, well, no. All human beings have equal value, foundational value, at least. But then, if I say, well, I am super smart, right? And I'm a very good architect. So I go out and I try and build a house and it falls down and it kills the people inside. I think logically I should say, I may not be a great architect, right? I maybe need to do a bit more work here. But this one says, no, never allow outcomes to shake your confidence. Really? Right? I just killed a bunch of people because my house fell down. The house I built for them. Remember, I defined myself as an architect, right? And I just killed these poor people. This should shake my faith. This should shake my resolve in myself, right? I can keep working, but I better take a really clear look at myself and say, are you sure you should be doing this? Do you even have the skill or ability to do this, right? I mean, this is dangerous, right? And, not allowing yourself to be affected by people's opinions, right? This appears to be like all feedback you can get from someone else. You say, opinion, useless, right? Because you can't, according to this, right, you can't even accept the positive opinions. No opinion can affect you, right? So again, how do you know to progress in life, right? How are you making any choices about anything, right? You can sit around thinking to yourself, I'm so amazing and I'm so wonderful, but you got to go and do something. And the only way to do something is by interacting in society, and you're going to have to deal with other people. Okay, yes, love yourself, be happy with yourself, but Jesus, don't focus on outcomes. Don't listen to other people at all. This is an extremist opinion, right? This in a way reminds me of The Simpsons. Homer Simpson, at one point, I forget which episode, he basically says, I don't believe anything I have ever done is wrong. Okay? And this is meant to be a humorous statement, clearly in the show. But if we apply this positive psychology to his statement, it must mean that Homer Simpson has incredibly high self-worth, right? And I think that's probably true, right? Because he is incredibly self-deluded, right? He thinks he can do anything most of the time. He is often the most optimistic person, sort of ever. And things often turn out terribly for him, right? So this is really quite strange, this belief, right? And I think this is something that you see happening in schools as well. I remember when I was young, we used to have all these different games and competitions and things, and we had clear winners and losers, and the coach would yell at you if you lost and things like that. And now, my sisters are in high school, and they go to competitions and things, and everyone is a winner. There were no losers, right? And the schools often ban games that have these clear winners and losers, right? Oh, we don't want to play that, and we don't want to make people feel bad. This is very, very strange. And I guess it doesn't make sense on a range of levels, because if you agree with this positive psychology quote, like I just mentioned, then you should be able to play all these games, because it doesn't matter if you win or lose, right? You should be fine, according to this, because you don't care about outcomes, and you don't care about people's opinions. So, right, I don't even care if I won or lost, because I won inside every time, and you can't tell me different. But at the same time, it appears that these schools are trying to protect people from ever experiencing the harsh reality of the world, right? Which really is going to sort of smack you down and criticize you and make you feel bad. And that is somewhat intentional, right? This is how we develop, right, over time. Like we gain resilience. We gain what people sometimes call grit, right? I can overcome these failures, right? And in fact, I gain self-worth by dealing with these failures, these setbacks, right? So I say to myself, I am someone who can overcome these types of things, and that makes me feel good because I have this strength now. Whereas if I'm protected from it, or I just choose to ignore it all, I will never get that, right? Because realistically, you can't ignore this stuff forever, right? It will catch up with you. Like, I may say I'm the best architect in the world still. No one's going to pay me to build them a house again unless I can really prove that I've gotten a lot better at building houses, given that my first house killed a bunch of people, right? So this individualist thing is very odd. Sort of we're all perfect people, equally good. I suppose in a way I think of it sort of like communism, isn't it? We're all perfect people, equal people, blah, blah, blah. We are all beautiful and unique snowflakes, and yet somehow we're all equal and the same. Very strange. Okay. Actually, one other thing I found from the positive psychology domains, and this was perhaps even worse than that quotation that I read. So they're suggesting what you should do to change your mindset. And this is some advice that they suggest telling to a teenager, for example, or a child who you've determined does not have high enough self-worth. So you should say to them, you are a human being. Sorry, I screwed that up. Now I feel like I have bad self-worth. Okay, here's the quote. Try again. Actually, I said it right the first time, so I feel doubly bad. Here's the soft voice again. You are a human being, not a human doing. Very philosophical there, and a nice word play at the same time, yeah? Oh, if you tell this to a teenager and they don't sort of vomit on the spot at hearing such inanity, they're probably lost anyway, right? You are a human being, not a human doing, right? Just being a human is enough, right? Don't worry about doing things. When has doing things ever been important? I don't know. Maybe fighting World War II and stopping Hitler. No, should have just been a human being. Human being would have been fine. Okay, so what else can we say here? Well, let's sort of wrap up some of these ideas. I would agree that we all have that basic level of worth, right? Human life is worthy, right? This is written into, our Constitution in America, at least, and this is certainly a Western concept, but I think we can almost say it's almost a universal concept to some degree. It's not perfect, but we all have some basic worth, some basic value. Okay, so if that's true, then don't feel too bad, right? You're not worthless in any sense. But it certainly is possible to increase your self-worth through a range of actions, right? And the outcomes of those actions is what is really important, because it really has to be that sort of comparison, that competition between you and other people. That is the only way to know if what you're doing is effective or not, right? You don't have to sort of look at every person in the world as your competitor, but they are there as almost like a mirror to you, right? Something that you can use as a measuring stick, right? Am I doing the things that I want to do, and am I doing them well, right? I may say that I'm a kind, honest, charitable person, right? But I have to do something to prove that, right? I can't just walk around saying I have these inner qualities, right? This is where when people say, oh, don't define yourself by your job or what you do, this logic breaks down, right? Because they say, well, it's about your inner qualities. Well, how does anyone know what my inner qualities are until I do something to show them, right? Having that job was one way to show you what my inner qualities were. It's certainly not the only one. It's not the only way to show you, right? But I need to be doing something. I cannot sit at home and say I'm better than, Mother Teresa or something, but I sit at home playing Xbox all day, right? And you say, well, Edward, what have you been doing? Have you been out there with the refugees and things? No. I don't define myself by outcomes. I don't define myself by your opinion. I know I'm better than Mother Teresa. I'm much kinder. Oh, you don't even know how kind I am, right? Right? This is meaningless. This is stupid, right? Any sort of real, sort of logical look at that proves it. It's stupid, right? I can't just simply say I have these qualities. I need to show I have these qualities. And then it's not just simply trying to help, right? I must be effective in my helping. I can't just say, yeah, well, I am very kind because, I help people by going up into tall buildings and throwing heavy bags of change off of the roof. And, the poor people down below get free money. But of course, if you look at that, I'm in fact killing a lot of people by dropping large bags of heavy money on their heads. So I did have a good intention. So I'm not a terrible person, perhaps, because I wanted to help, but I was useless at helping. I was useless. So that is something I cannot use to say I should have very high self-worth, right? Okay, I have the basic level. I'm trying to be kind, but I am useless at being kind so far. I need to get better, right? And I need to listen to the feedback and criticism from other people. Otherwise, I will never get better. Because how can I know if I'm doing it well or not unless people tell me? Okay. So this one's gone a bit long, but I think you got the basic idea. Sure, love yourself, feel happy with yourself, but you got to improve yourself as well, right? You got to be sort of listening to other people, trying to look at your outcomes, and using that measuring stick of other people and society to guide you. Okay, so out of time for today, I think. But that was a pretty good discussion. Certainly let me know if you've got any feedback for me, perhaps something that could increase my self-worth or to make me feel very sad. Anyway, hit the like button if you want. That would be certainly appreciated, or even better, hit the subscribe button. And let me know if you have any questions or anything like that, or just send me a message. And I will see you guys next time.